Marking his regime's 76th founding anniversary on Monday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reportedly called on his officials to further bolster the North's nuclear forces, saying intensive power is what defines real peace. Let's turn to Professor Mason Richey for more. Welcome back, Professor Richey.
Great, thanks for having me.
Let's begin with how there was no major provocation to mark the regime's founding anniversary. Any particular reason why it's so quiet?
Well, I think that there are a number of reasons. One of them could be internal issues. We know that, for instance, North Korea has experienced some significant flooding recently, and that has caused some political instability, or at least some difficulties, let's say, for the regime to respond to. We know that Kim Jong-un has, in some sense, felt himself compelled in one form or another to apologize for not doing a better job with that issue, or his regime not doing a better job with that issue. So that may be a part of it. Another part of it may be that they're waiting for the U.S. presidential election, either to get closer towards it before they decide to do something, if they want to send a message to the U.S. during the end of the presidential campaign, or perhaps even waiting until a new president is in office before they carry out some type of kinetic provocation. It may also simply be the case that they're not ready technically for something to test, and that they may not right now have scheduled something for a demonstration or a training exercise.
Right. Instead, the North State media reported this morning that the leader, Kim Jong-un, made an important speech on the direction of national projects, which includes bolstering its nuclear forces. Now, why such a comment? What's your take on the speech and the report?
So again, one can imagine that there are elements of this that are about internal propaganda, shoring up regime support by focusing on national projects, and those include obviously construction projects and agricultural projects and all kinds of things that the North Korean regime wants to do, and that includes obviously building nuclear weapons, which it uses as a source of regime legitimacy and as a sort of national rallying point. Of course, there's also an external direction to this. That is to say, essentially giving a sense to North Korea's adversaries, especially the United States and South Korea, of the fact that North Korea is building up its nuclear arsenal. Kim spoke potentially about exponential growth of warheads. Now, I don't necessarily believe that exponential is literally what he meant, but significant growth in North Korea's number of nuclear warheads. And that, of course, just underscores the fact that North Korea has zero interest in denuclearization or even talks about denuclearization.
Well, Professor Richey, on top of that, North Korea also made sure to report that the leaders of China and Russia sent congratulatory messages to the North for its founding anniversary. Is this significant in any way?
Well, I mean, this is sort of standard diplomatic protocol for strategic partners and allies. States all over the world, whether those be states in good international standing, or whether those be rogue or authoritarian nations like North Korea or China or Russia, send these types of messages to each other on these important occasions. There's nothing unusual about that per se, but it does, of course, remind us of the fact that there is this sort of axis of disruption in terms of the rules-based international order, notably China and North Korea, Russia and North Korea in particular, but also China. And that especially North Korea and Russia have gotten much tighter over the last 18 months or so, really since a few months after the war in Ukraine started and Russia and North Korea started to engage in sanctions-busting trade.
Well, we also have to talk about North Korea's resumption of flying balloons carrying trash with you, Professor Richey. Is this solely because North Korean activists and defectors here in the South continue to do the same? Is it because they are doing it, we're doing it kind of strategy?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, this is a sort of classic, what we call gray zone activity in international security. Which is to say that North Korea can engage in an irritating and an annoying behavior that does hurt South Korea in one form or another, even if it's just sort of political subversion, and that really carries with it, very little risk for North Korea in terms of, what South Korea can do in response. You talk about, activists, for instance, and South Korea sending balloon leaflets, anti-regime balloons with these leaflets into the north, and would that cause North Korea to stop sending these trash balloons? The probable answer to that, at least in the short term, one would think would be yes. But that's not the same thing as to say that the activists here in South Korea are responsible or the cause of what North Korea is doing, just because North Korea would stop if they would stop. And at the very least, I think we would find that North Korea would engage in some other type of provocation if it isn't these balloons with trash in them.
Well, then why balloons over missiles? I mean, missiles are, more obvious ways to threaten the South Korea and surrounding the raised tensions on the peninsula. Is it because balloons are more annoying and irritating, like you said?
Well, they are annoying. They are irritating. As I said, they're this gray zone activity that falls below, the threshold of, some type of significant retaliation by South Korea. It might simply be the case that North Korea doesn't want to, waste the missiles. If these are missiles that would be used really for demonstration purposes or exercise purposes rather than testing. Testing is something different. There's an outcome there technically that's important. So North Korea may not want to waste the missiles. They may also think that this is in some ways more effective in terms of hurting Yoon Suk-yeol politically. At this point, I think South Koreans largely don't pay attention to these missile launches very much anymore, at least if they're, short range and intermediate range and medium range missiles. So, these trash balloons, they carry a different valence because they're an annoyance to people. The photos appear in the media. And it's less abstract in some sense than a missile launch, which to some degree we see reported, and most people just simply move on with their day.
Right, and they're a lot easier to spot and realize for many citizens here in the country. Alrighty, Professor Richey, thank you so much for making your time with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Great, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.